All right, everybody, get ready. Because today, we are diving headfirst into a period of history that really makes you think. We're talking new imperialism. You know, that time in the 19th and early 20th century when European powers, and hey, let's not forget the US and Japan, they kind of decided. Well, they acted like the whole world was up for grabs. And to guide us through this wild ride, we're taking a close look at this YouTube video called New Imperialism, Empires Ascendant in Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Seriously, you're going to want to hear this.
It's true, this isn't your typical history lesson.
Not at all. It's not about like ship swapping spices anymore. This is Industrial Revolution era stuff. We're talking factories popping up left and right, and those factories needed, well, they were hungry for resources, for power. I mean, let's be real, for global domination. So, expert speaker, for those of us who need a little refresher, what really set new imperialism apart from those, earlier attempts at colonialism? What changed?
It was a whole bunch of things happening all at once, like a perfect storm, really. The Industrial Revolution, that was a game changer. Suddenly, you've got this massive demand for raw materials to feed the factories. And then new technologies emerge. Steamships, the telegraph, you name it. They gave these powers the ability to reach and control distant lands way more effectively than ever before.
So it's like opportunity meets, well, a whole lot of ambition.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about the opportunity, it was also about the mindset. There was this belief, this really messed up idea that Europeans were somehow superior, destined to civilize everyone else.
You're talking about social Darwinism and that whole white man's burden thing, right?
Yeah.
Even hearing those phrases just makes me cringe.
I hear you. It's pretty disturbing. These completely made-up ideas, they were used to justify conquest and exploitation on a massive scale. It's like social Darwinism took real scientific theory, twisted it all up to basically claim that Europeans were at the top of the heap.
And the white man's burden? Don't even get me started.
Right, as if imperialism was this noble, selfless act.
More like a convenient excuse for some seriously awful behavior. And speaking of awful, can we just talk about what happened in the Congo for a second? I mean, King Leopold II of Belgium, that whole story is like something out of a horror movie.
It's a dark, dark chapter, and honestly, it's often overlooked.
Now, we need to talk about it.
We do. Because King Leopold, he was obsessed with rubber and ivory. I mean, his greed literally led to the deaths of millions of people in the Congo Free State, forced labor, mutilation, murder. It was rampant.
It's hard to even wrap your head around something so horrific happening.
Yeah.
And on that scale.
I know. The Congo Free State is like the textbook example of imperialism at its absolute worst.
And a stark reminder that all this talk of progress and civilization,
yeah.
Well, for many people during this time, the reality was much, much darker.
You got it. And it's not like this was limited to the Congo either. The exploitation, the brutality, it was happening everywhere.
It's true. It makes you think, like, what was it like to be in their shoes?
Right. To be fighting for a power that's basically taking over your home. It's mind-blowing.
Totally. But even with a massive army, I mean, the British still face pushback, right? The video mentioned this whole thing called the Sepoy Rebellion back in 1857.
Huge turning point, that rebellion.
What sparked it?
They were using these rifle cartridges greased with animal fat. Huge problem for Hindu and Muslim soldiers.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see why that would cause an issue.
It was a direct violation of their religious beliefs. So yeah, it blew up into this massive uprising against British rule.
Man, those little details in history, right? They seem small, but then boom, huge consequences.
It's true. It makes you think about cause and effect in a whole new way.
It really does. But even though they lost the rebellion, it sounds like it forced the British to, I don't know, rethink things a bit.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely shook them up. They had to reevaluate how they were running India, and, it planted the seeds for Indian nationalism, which eventually led to their independence. So it's not like it was all for nothing.
Right. Okay, so while all this is happening in India, what's going on in Southeast Asia, the British were in Burma, the French in Indochina. It sounded messy.
Oh, it was a constant power struggle. The British, once they felt good about India, turned their attention to Burma.
Makes sense.
I mean, those teak forests, valuable stuff. Plus, strategically, Burma was in a prime location. But it wasn't easy for them. They had to fight a bunch of wars against the Burmese monarchy before they could claim the whole country.
Wow. So what about the French? They were busy building their own little empire over in Indochina, right?
Totally. They were like, hey, if the British can do it, so can we. They had that same imperialist drive, And Vietnam was right there, ripe for the taking.
And they just took it.
Well, not exactly overnight. They were smart about it, played the long game. They saw those internal divisions within the Vietnamese kingdom, and they used them to their advantage. Slowly but surely, they gained influence until, boom, they were in control. Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, the whole shebang. They called it French Indochina.
It's like a domino effect, isn't it? One power makes a move, and suddenly everyone's trying to grab their piece of the map.
Exactly. And it wasn't just limited to Asia either. Even those Pacific islands weren't safe from this mad grab for colonies.
Oh, right. The U.S. annexing Hawaii. But that wasn't just a casual, hey, we're here kind of thing, was it?
No, not at all. Sugar played a big role. American businessmen had those plantations and they were making a killing. So naturally, they wanted to control those resources, and annexation was the perfect way to do it. It bumped up their economic and political power in the Pacific big time.
But it wasn't just about sugar, right? There had to be some strategic thinking going on there, too.
Oh, for sure. The U.S. was becoming a global player, and having a solid foothold in the Pacific was crucial. They needed to project their naval power, protect their interests in Asia. Hawaii was a strategic gold mine.
It's amazing how it all ties together. While Britain's busy solidifying their hold on India, the French are making moves in Indochina, and the U.S. decides to play their hand in the Pacific, like a giant chess game with real-life stakes.
That's a great way to put it. It was a high-stakes game, and the board kept getting bigger. And we can't forget about Japan in all of this. They were going through major changes, too. Industrializing, modernizing, and guess what? They had their own imperial ambitions.
Right, they were expanding into Korea and parts of China, if I remember correctly. It's like everyone wanted a piece of the pie.
It was a free-for-all. And it made the whole geopolitical landscape incredibly volatile. These weren't isolated incidents, they were all connected, influencing each other in ways that had huge, long-lasting consequences.
It really shows how new imperialism wasn't a European thing. It was a global power shift. And the ripple effects, well, we're still dealing with them today.
100%.
Yep.
But it's important to remember that amidst all this talk of empires and colonization, the people being colonized, they weren't just sitting down and taking it. There was resistance, and lots of it.
That's right. We talked about the Sepoy Rebellion in India, and then there was Ya Santewa, that Ashanti queen, leading a rebellion against the British. Talk about courage.
Seriously. It's incredibly inspiring to see that kind of defiance, especially when you're up against such overwhelming power. Her story, and countless others like it, they remind us that even in some of history's darkest moments, the human spirit, that will to resist, it never truly dies out.
It's easy to focus on the oppression, but those stories of resistance, they give you hope.
Yeah.
People never stopped fighting for their freedom, for the right to determine their own destiny.
Absolutely. And that fight, it didn't end with new imperialism. It's still going on today in various forms.
And, it wasn't just about fighting back physically. It was about preserving culture, language, identity, all of it.
Absolutely. It was about resisting on every level. They were holding on to their heritage in the face of incredible pressure to conform, to assimilate, and that's powerful stuff.
It really is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but let's shift gears one last time and talk about Africa. The video really honed in on the Berlin Conference. Yeah.
Basically, it was a bunch of European powers sitting around a table, carving up Africa like a birthday cake, right? It's crazy, right? This mad dash to claim as much territory as possible. And they weren't exactly being considerate about it. Existing ethnic groups, cultural boundaries, it's like they didn't even think about it. They were just drawing lines on a map like it was nothing. Exactly. Creating borders that made sense to them on paper, but completely ignoring the realities on the ground. And you know what? We're still dealing with the fallout from those decisions today. That's what blows my mind. It's like the ghost of imperialism is still hanging around. It's true. So many of the conflicts and tensions we see in Africa today, they have roots in those arbitrarily drawn colonial borders. It's like they created these divisions out of thin air where they never existed before. Exactly. And sadly, those divisions can still fuel instability and violence. It's a powerful reminder that what happened in the past, it doesn't just disappear. No, not at all. Those decisions made over a century ago, they echo through time. They do. It's like a cautionary tale. Like, be careful how you draw those lines on the map because they might come back to haunt you. Exactly. It's a reminder that we need to understand history to understand the present. I mean, and we can't fully grasp what's going on in the world today without acknowledging how we got here, right? Right. So I have to ask, we've talked about the dark side of new imperialism, that hunger for resources, for power. But was there anything at all positive that came out of it, or am I being totally naive here? It's a question historians still debate. Because, yeah, there's no denying the horrors, exploitation, cultural destruction, violence, it's all there. But some advancements did happen during this period. Railroads, modern medicine, education systems, those were introduced to colonized regions too.
So it's not as simple as good guys and bad guys.
Nope, there's a huge gray area.
Like with those railroads, for example.
Exactly. Were they built to benefit the local people, or were they just a way to extract resources more efficiently? It makes you think.
Power. Who has it? Who benefits? Who pays the price? That about sums it up, right?
Pretty much. New imperialism really shines a light on those power dynamics, but hey, there's another side to this story too. Remember all those stories of resistance, of resilience, of people rising up, fighting back, ultimately liberating themselves. That's part of the story too.
It's true. Those stories give me hope. Proof that even when it seems like the odds are stacked against you, people can overcome incredible challenges.
And they're still overcoming them today. The effects of new imperialism, they're still playing out around the world. Social inequalities, economic imbalances, political struggles, it's all connected to this period in history.
So much to unpack. But
Yeah.
if we had to sum up the biggest takeaway from our deep dive into new imperialism, what would it be?
History matters. It's not just dates and names in a textbook. It's about understanding the forces that shaped our world, the events that led us to where we are today. New imperialism, it's a prime example of that. It's about power, it's about culture, it's about the fight for equality and justice, and that fight is still going on.
So basically what you're saying is we need to keep learning, keep asking questions,
Always.
and never settle for easy answers. Because as we've seen today, history is anything but simple. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Until next time, everybody.
For everyone listening, thanks for joining us, and keep exploring.